we are back, and we just finished watching 2023's Boy Kills World, rated R with a runtime of 1 hour and 51 minutes. This comes to us from director Moritz Mohr and has writing credits to Tyler Burton Smith, Arend, Remmers, and Moritz Mohr. This is the story of Boy, played by Bill Skarsgård, a young man who is ripped away from his family violently and then raised by this shaman assassin, I guess.
That's all. Yeah, all you know of him is he's called the Shaman.
Yeah, to then extract revenge on those that did him wrong.
The Van Der Koy family.
The Van Der Koy family.
Who are apparently like dictators of someplace.
Yeah.
I mean, there's jungle, so I'm guessing it's like some sort of like Malaysian area.
So on paper, I feel like this is something that I should have been 100% on board with, and yet I don't know how to feel about this film. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. I think you and I mentioned this as we were watching the film. There were a lot of choices that left me scratching my head.
There were a lot of strange choices, mainly in the
narrator.
No, it wasn't even just the narrator. Well, yeah, there's the narrator aspect to it. They got the voice of HJonBenjamin, who's
otherwise known as Bob Belcher.
Bob Belcher, Archer, probably countless other cartoons. You've heard his voice.
Yeah, Arby's spokesman.
Yes, and his voice is great for comedic turns, and that's what he's doing here. But I did not understand why they were trying to lean into comedy in this movie. Like, this film would have just been so much better if it was just a straight action piece that had the twists that it had, and the violence. I mean, wow.
Yeah,
the violence in this movie was extremely gratuitous, over-the-top violence.
That part I didn't mind.
No, it's fun seeing that type of action, and wonderful seeing Yayan from
The Raid.
From The Raid, Mad
Otherwise
Dog.
Known as Mad Dog, yeah.
Just kicking
eviscerating
all kinds of ass.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen him recently in like bit parts in other action movies, and I think he was actually even in one of those Star Wars movies.
Yes.
You barely see what this guy could do.
Yeah.
Barely. Not since The Raid have you seen what this guy could do. And in this film, he is just wrecking shit. The final fight scene is actually really well done.
Really well done.
Gruesome, bloody, visceral. It's like The Raid all over again.
Yeah, yeah.
He's fighting two people, and he is holding his own, and he's great. I mean, the facial for a short guy, the facial expressions he's pulling, the moves he's doing. He should be like, if not on the screen, he should be choreographing a ton of this, because from what I understand, I think that's what he does mostly is like fight choreography and stuff like that.
Yeah. He's
brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And to make other actors who are not martial artists, right. I don't think Bill Skarsgård or whoever played the sister.
Uh-huh.
I doubt that they spent years training.
Right, right.
But that choreography looked good. It was fast. It was fluid. They were doing good stuff with the camera as far as like moving it around the players. There were cuts, but they also did a lot of camera movement that worked with the movement of the strikes. And not only that, but then there's like guns blazing, people getting their heads blown off, pieces blown off their bodies.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a gruesome, bloody movie, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is the type of action thing that I want. But then suddenly you just have like these weird comedy aspects, like
Andrew Koji too. His character.
Andrew Koji's character was just like yelling all the time, and I understand sometimes you want a comedy relief sort of character, but then you have him, and on top of that you got HJonBenjamin, and then on top of that you have I think his name is Isaiah Mustafa.
Yeah.
I think he was the Old Spice guy, and his character is just ridiculous. He just speaks gibberish. I mean, it's well constructed gibberish, but it's clearly there for comedy purposes. The whole mass murder sponsored by a cereal company, It's over the top. It's ridiculous. It doesn't fit. It's a strange choice to make.
Right.
And I feel like it was a detriment to the rest of the movie.
Right. I think it was trying to be too many things. I think if they had just stayed in the lane of like an action picture,
yes,
this would have worked better. And I usually like HJonBenjamin, but I didn't like him here. Not that I didn't like him per se, it just shouldn't have been him.
Yeah.
Because his voice is very distinct. Like, I'm listening to that voice, and I'm like, that would never come out of Bill Skarsgård, first of all.
Not only that, but you're so used to him being Bob and Archer.
And comedic.
The tone of the voice.
It's so deadpan.
It doesn't lend itself to these moments.
Right. Agreed.
There are some gruesome moments and also some moments of revelation and whatnot. Suddenly HJonBenjamin's voice comes in and it's like, all right, well, that mood has just been shattered because now I'm just thinking of, bad things happen in the bathroom.
I love that song.
From what I read, there was other versions where it was just Bill Skarsgård's voice, and apparently one version where it was like a Sam Elliott type voice.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so
hey,
crazy.
mijo,
Yeah.
Roadhouse.
I personally would have loved silence. Like, if he's deaf and mute, just let it be silent. Let me just see what's happening. If you're doing the story not from his POV, then I guess you can have like all the noises and stuff. But while you're in the character of Boy, I think it would have really lent itself well to just do it in silence. Because the screen is already full of just all this glorious, over-the-top insanity. So to juxtapose that with like the quiet of silence so that you could really focus on what's going on in the screen, to me, that would have been the way to go. And again, you could, if you wanted to add the elements of like the gunshots and stuff like that, you could do it when you're not in the POV of Boy. I think the second thing that also, I know you didn't particularly have a problem with the with that little reveal towards the end. It kind of bothered me because I felt like it wasn't really original. I mean, I think you could have made it seem that Mina, the sister, was taken in by this crazy family because maybe she survived the culling or whatever. But to then turn it around so that Boy is part of this. Like, there were flashes of him like being hurt and his tongue getting cut out, and I guess he didn't realize who exactly had done that to him, or he had blocked it out.
Are we spoiling this now?
I don't think anybody's gonna watch it. I mean, have you heard anyone like, oh, I really got to see Boy Kills World?
Well, some people might be interested, and then they don't want it revealed.
We're spoiling this on the thing, so I don't have any qualms about spoilers right now.
All right, it's up to you.
See, now I lost my train of thought because of your interjection. What was I saying?
That he didn't remember who was doing the stuff to him.
Right. So I didn't like that choice in the story. I think it should have just been a straight revenge story. There's nothing wrong with a straight revenge story.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been that. I did not find the twist bothersome at all. I thought that was interesting. And also, if you didn't have that twist, you wouldn't have had that amazing fight scene at the end. Plus, it kind of had like the whole moral of revenge is kind of useless. It basically just destroyed everybody. So.
Possibly, but I don't know. I don't know if the
revenge destroyed everyone's life in this movie.
Fair enough, but I don't know if the writers were thinking that deep.
Maybe, but they ended up doing it. So there's that. Yeah, I wasn't bothered by the twist that they threw in there at the end, and it gave the last part of the movie, I guess, a little bit more fuel to go on. Because I got to be honest, it felt like it was petering out there towards the end. There's only that's kind of the problem with a lot of action movies is you can only take it so far, and then it's just sort of like, okay, well, let's get to the conclusion.
Right, yeah. I definitely felt tired watching this film. So this is very much in the vein of other action-y movies. Not that we didn't have action movies. We've always had the action genre. However, I really believe like John Wick revitalized that because it was so well done.
I would say like really like violent action movies from like Hollywood.
Right.
Because there was always Asian cinema. There was tons of stuff there.
Well, that's what I mean. Not that it ever went away and that it wasn't a thing, but I feel like there was sort of this resurgence, at least in American cinema, where you now had a little bit more attention to detail. Things look sleeker and prettier. You don't necessarily have the most amazing scripts, but the best stories are usually very simple and very A to B, like the first Wick. Like, I think we've seen all of them, right? Yeah, we've seen all of them.
Yeah.
And I feel like out of the four, the first one's still my favorite and the best. And it's just a very simple story. Also a revenge story. And it doesn't get too bogged down in stuff, in details. And I think that that's what makes that movie so good. It's just a very straight story.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of fat on there.
That is true, and that's a good apt description. There's not a lot of fat, whereas this, there was a lot of fat on this. There was a lot of chaos.
Yeah. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to say is that this reminded me of, I don't know if you watched this with me. I had to watch this for film discussion. Guns Akimbo, the Daniel Radcliffe movie.
Yeah, I watched that. Yeah, this is sort of similar. Just
very
a ridiculous
frenetic,
premise.
Hectic.
Lots of action.
Lots of action.
Running, screaming, shooting.
Right. Kind of surreal situations and stuff. So,
yeah.
And I feel like that movie did that better than this.
I would probably agree with that because I really feel like this film, it got derailed with the comedy. They were trying too hard with it, whereas in Guns Akimbo, it was ridiculous.
Right.
But that wasn't the focal. That was never a focal point. It wasn't, if I was watching a Guns Akimbo on TV and they had the little descriptor underneath the title when you press the info button, it would just say action.
Right.
Whereas this would say action comedy. And I don't know if you're going to do an action comedy, you got to really have good comedy there. It shouldn't be a distraction. It should be like a sweetener to what you're seeing.
Right, service to the story. Yeah, and I think that while you could have had like a joke or two here and there, I think to have that running gag of the voiceover narrator running, I mean, he's basically throughout the film.
Plus, his voice is just too distracting. It's Bob.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the guy. I love Bob's Burgers. I love Archer, but it didn't belong here. No, it really didn't. Especially, it's very
distinct, and you hear it, and like you said,
very
you
distinct.
Immediately
you hear
think of these characters that John H.
And especially when you when you watch the whole film and you realize, oh, well, this is kind of a dark story about revenge and being obsessive about revenge and pretty much lives being destroyed. I mean, yes, some of the lives are ridiculous, but there's no real good guys in here. I mean, Boy's a good guy, but he's being manipulated throughout the entire runtime.
Right, right.
I mean, we're pairing this with Deadpool and Wolverine. Good action comedy.
Yes. Yes.
It wasn't the best thing.
No.
It was good.
Also, the first one was way better.
First one was the best.
But even Deadpool and Wolverine, it also became a little excessive, but I think it worked better in that film because you're so used to the Deadpool character being that guy.
Yeah,
this
and
wasn't
plus
something new.
And plus, it put the comedy in the comedy bits. It put the action in the action bits. If ever the two met, it was not really distracting at all.
Right, right.
This was distracting, which took away from
the story,
the whole enjoyment of the movie.
Yeah, because
I would have been happy if you have to have narration, you want to explain stuff, just do Bill Skarsgård's voice. Don't make it goofy at all. Don't make it weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was just one aspect that, like I said, the whole, we're trying to get, how hard it is to get a serial company to sponsor mass murder and the way they were acting, like Sharlto Copley and the bearded guy.
Oh, Brett Goldman.
They're acting like over the top
Right.
Sometimes it was just too much and too distracting. I would rather that those people were just like complete douchebags.
Right.
For some reason, I just thought of the story of Ricky. And the story of Ricky has a lot of outlandish characters in it.
Yeah. And outlandish
gore and violence.
Yeah.
But those characters are bastards.
Yes.
Those characters, they're not intentionally funny. They're not trying to intentionally be funny.
Yeah.
And so when you see them fight and get annihilated, it's satisfying. It's satisfying, and there's nothing distracting about it.
No.
Aside from crazy special effects, the
Ricky's
warden
hand going right through that guy. My God.
Brilliant work of art.
Yeah, I don't feel like there's anything more to say about this. Let's just give our numbers, I guess.
Yeah.
I think it was an interesting idea that just failed on the execution. I think
some poor choices were made that shouldn't have been made.
Yeah, I agree. 1 to 10, I would give this a 6. It wasn't the worst thing. It wasn't the best thing. It's $5.99 of rent. So, I mean, it's a small price to pay.
I too would give it a 6. Like I said, there's good stuff in there.
Yeah.
It's just the strange choices of trying to shoehorn comedic moments into something that didn't need it.
No.
It would have been so much better if it was just played as a violent, gritty sort of, I guess, sci-fi-ish action movie.
Yeah.
They made some odd choices that didn't pay off.
Yeah, it was kind of a letdown. This should tick all the boxes for me, but it didn't. And I got up. I went to look for snacks, and I was just not invested in the story.
I mean, I sat through the whole thing. I found the beginning a bit tedious, but
Fair.
Once it started rolling as far as action goes, really, really well done.
Yes.
But yeah, I would give it a 6 as well.
Again, Boy Kills World, rated R, runtime of 1 hour and 51 minutes. This is to buy rent on Prime if you are so inclined. And that's it from us, and we will bid you all a
good night.
Good night.